Which Pride and Prejudice character are you? By Sarah Courtauld. I mean, I knew I was no Elizabeth. Muddy long walks I could do, laughing at idiotic men, fine. Everyone needs a reason to get out of bed in the morning. But I had no accomplishments, no repartee, did not adore my sisters, and the thought of being stuck in a country house with someone like Darcy, well, sounded like a lot of long Thursdays and rainy walks and asking questions about acreage and bovine foot rot. Yeah, I was okay with not being Lizzie. Around posh, arrogant men, I did tend to freeze into a sort of Jane-like agreeableness, trying to bury my boredom with a lot of polite nodding. Then again, with 3 glasses of wine, I could get quite Lydia. Although, who has the time for that these days? At my deepest heart's core, and also near any musical instrument, I have to admit, I did have a strong inner Mary, always there, ready and waiting to destroy any karaoke bar with her unbearably sincere and only slightly flat renditions of Killing Me Softly and So Long Marianne. Maybe I was Kitty. Poor Kitty. Always forgotten. I paused my thoughts for a moment and read on. I was only on chapter 7. It wasn't the first time I'd read it, obviously. I'd inhaled the one and only true adaptation, the 1995 Colin Firth version, at an impressionable age. But it had been a while since I'd gone back to it. Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Lydia. I really hoped I wasn't Mr. Collins. I put the book down. Then, one simple Google later, age of main characters in Pride and Prejudice. My blood ran cold. I'd never considered. It had never crossed my mind. I mean, it just wasn't. I must have sat there for at least 2 minutes, dumbstruck, before I walked, staggered, downstairs. The house was quiet. It was nearly midnight. Lola was asleep. My husband was in his study, his desk piled up with books. I stood in his doorway with a haunted look. I've turned into you. I couldn't say it. I'm the same age, approximately, as I stood there, a hand over my mouth, my throat dry. He looked up from his Kindle, gave me a quick smile, and carried on reading. I've become Alison Steadman, I said, weakly. He didn't say anything, so I said it again. Louder. He tapped at his earbud to turn it off. Sorry? I don't know how it happened. I'm the same age as Mrs. Bennet in Pride and Prejudice. I was no longer sure if I was even breathing, which I think is something that's supposed to happen in a Jane Austen novel, but not quite like this. Yes, I suppose you would be by now, he said, smiling again. His eyes turned back to his Kindle, which did absolutely nothing to quell the very real terror I was experiencing that someone had quietly cursed my life. And without me noticing, when I wasn't looking, maybe when I was making pasta, or giving birth, or sitting through Sparky songs, or doom scrolling, the curse had turned the pair of us into Mr. and Mrs. Bennet. In general, I'm not one to sink into a sofa. It seems like ridiculous behaviour. But at that moment, my body gave way beneath me. I'm not supposed to be getting obsessed with who my children are going to marry and talking too loudly and having doctors talking to me about my nerves? I'm supposed to be being rescued by Greg Wise on a fucking horse. Or getting Alan Rickman to read me sonnets when I have a cold. Or at the very least, I could be taking coke in a bathroom with Caroline Bingley. Or eloping, like Lydia. Or eloping with Lydia. He tapped his earbud again, noticing that I appeared to be still there, in his study, lying flat on his sofa, gesticulating. "Were you worried about something?" he asked. So I said it all again, at length, which left me feeling quite vexed and also dehydrated. He sighed. While he wasn't actually wearing half-moon spectacles, I could see that on some deep spiritual level. They were there, perched halfway down his nose. I'd just never noticed them before. "Isn't it Willoughby in Sense and Sensibility?" he said. "You're not taking me seriously." And even Kate Winslet didn't have Greg Wise and Alan Rickman, did she? How old was she in that film? Oh, Jesus, I don't even know. Is that the point? 19, he said after checking his phone. "We should watch that again sometime. I've forgotten how hot she was in that." "Oh, you are beyond," I said. "You're actually enjoying this, aren't you?" "Am I enjoying you lying on my sofa at this moment?" "Let's say I am, for the sake of keeping the peace." "Do you know what?" I said. I knew he wasn't listening, but I didn't even care. "It's 2025. You would think just by being alive now, I'd be better off than Mrs. Bennet. I mean, it should be easier to be 42 by now. Yes, but no, it's actually much harder." I find that highly unlikely," he said, "but no doubt you're about to put me in the picture." "Did Mrs. Bennet ever make fish fingers? Did she do the laundry? Did she breastfeed her own children? Did her kids have to watch number blocks or even bother with times tables? Did she have to constantly cart them off to dance classes? Though I imagine she probably did little else." He looked into the distance. "I suppose she was also deeply worried about her family's precarious situation," he added. "Well, exactly. All she worried about was the precarious situation of her family. I have to worry about the precarious situation of the entire planet. I mean, do you ever look at the news? I think you'll find hysteria is, in fact, the most human response. And I'm sure the planet is most grateful for your concerns," he said. I had to get up, push open the window, and breathe out of it. I was beginning to feel more and more unwell. Also, Mrs. Bennet was smart, I said, partly to him, partly to the moon. She had her kids young. We had our family. "Our daughter," he interrupted. "Oh, why must you always minimise? We have Lola and we have Gertrude, who I'm very fond of, as you're well aware, but you are also aware, I hope, that Gertrude is a Scottish terrier. All I'm saying is, by the time Mrs. Bennet was encountering some mental health challenges in her 40s, she wasn't also trying to shovel broccoli into her daughter's mouth and remember their reading eggs passwords and their sports kit, and oh my God, it's so clear." "Are you going to stay there?" said Mr. Bennet. I don't know what I used to call him. It was clear now that no other name would ever fit. Or shall I turn out the lights? I'm going upstairs. "But don't you see? Mrs. Bennet was perimenopausal, obviously. No wonder she had such terrible nerves. She didn't have Davina McCall talking about starflower oil on Women's Hour. All she had was card games and bonnet shopping. No wonder she was..." I ducked back into the room. He turned out the light. I heard the creak from above as he got into bed upstairs. "Everyone says All Fours is a first-rate novel of perimenopause," I shouted. "But they're wrong! Pride and Prejudice is!" No response. At least, not from him. About a second later, it became clear that I had woken up both my daughter and the dog. As the week went on, I kept reading. In the office at lunchtime, during Sarah and Duck after tea. I even tried giving it to Lola as a bedtime story, but having to explain the words supposition, eluded, annuity and surmise meant I gave up halfway through my first sentence. The more I read, the clearer Mrs. Bennet's diagnosis became. At first, I felt sorry for her. If only she'd had some lovely estrogel cream to smear all over her thighs, she might have had quite a different time at the Netherfield ball. And when I couldn't sleep at night, I could never sleep at night, I couldn't shake the thought that I really had become her. I also couldn't look at my husband without imagining him in a long white nightgown, complete with matching nightcap. When Lola refused to go to bed, I kept threatening never to take her to London for the season, which had very little effect since she had no idea what the season was, and also we lived in London. Every time I had to find a lost My Little Pony or make another cheese sandwich, I'd mutter, "Mrs. Bennet didn't even do this, and she was mad as a coot, so where does that leave me?" Eventually, I tried to console myself by listing all the things my century had that hers didn't. Antibiotics. Hats that weren't bonnets. Greg Wise. Divorce. Psychedelics. Robotics. But somehow, my destiny still felt deeply entwined with hers. It wasn't till Saturday night that it happened. I was lying on the sofa, too tired to clear up the chips and peas and pasta and Lego, while Mr. Bennet was, naturally, ferreted away in his study. It was 1 a.m. when I got to the end of the novel, and basked deeply in the afterglow of its happy ending. I couldn't stop smiling. It had taken me until the very last page to realise that, of course, Mrs. Bennet wasn't a laughing stock. She was the novel's main character. She was the heroine that I needed to become. She wanted her daughters to get married. They did. She needed to secure the future of her family. She did. She'd decided to test Darcy's love for Elizabeth with the full force of her own personality. He passed. I put the book down and padded upstairs to my daughter's room. I knelt down beside her bed and looked at her sweet, sleeping face. "It's all right, Lola," I told her softly. "I was lost before. But Jane Austen, a very wise lady who had no husband, has told me who I am and who I can become. You can be whoever you want to be, but I will be my very best, Mrs. Bennet, for you."